Hello and welcome to Max Spoilers from MinnMax. I'm Ben Hanson, joined by Ross, the Star Wars guy Pfund.
Hey guys.
And Bryan, Batman Arkham Asylum himself, Vore.
All right, hey guys.
welcome. This is Max Spoilers for the series finale, I guess we should phrase it as, for WandaVision. So heads up, spoilers. Do not watch this or listen to this unless you've watched the entire season of WandaVision. Please don't spoil it for yourself. Also, if you want to unlock the podcast version of Max Spoilers, our interviews, early access to the MinnMax show, the deepest dive, all that fun stuff, you can support us over on Patreon. We'd appreciate it. Speaking of the deepest dive, Bryan Vore, you're going to join us for the deepest dive on Batman Arkham Asylum.
That's right. I'm very excited for it. I got the game all downloaded, the remastered version, and I'm ready to power through to the line launcher point this weekend.
Yeah, so if you support us at any tier on Patreon, you can submit a comment about the first half of that game, which we ballpark is right when you get the line launcher tool. It's, I think, Bryan, you're saying like it's more like 60%, but close enough. So stop there and then submit a comment, then we'll read it during the huge Game Club discussion where we'll be joined by Brandon Jones from Easy Allies and the wonderful Kyle Hilliard, so it should be a good time. Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. Table setting out of the way. WandaVision, it's done. Nothing left to speculate about. Reddit is going quiet. Everyone is just, the party's over. People are packing up and heading home. Ross, what'd you think, man?
Hey, I liked it a lot. And, it's kind of inevitable, I guess, that it ends not with the crazy idea of sitcom world, which was kind of the big appeal through most of the first 2/3 of the show.
Yeah.
But I still found the end of the series pretty exciting and satisfying. For me, a lot of it comes down to just how crazy good Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany are. Those two are like outrageously good. They haven't had a ton of opportunities in the other Marvel movies that they've been in to really stretch their legs this much. But wow, I just was blown away every week by Elizabeth Olsen in particular.
Yeah, for me, it was Paul Bettany in particular, but Elizabeth Olsen's also great. But just so much of this show emotionally, I feel like worked because of Paul Bettany's sincerity. Like when he was scared or confused, which I guess was a majority of the show. He was confused about what he was and what was happening. Like he sold it so well. I just loved his performance throughout this entire thing, except for in this last episode, where his white vision, his signature move is kind of like snarling one little bit of his lip. It drove me nuts.
Yeah, angry robot.
Yeah.
How else would you be able to tell the difference between the two visions?
It's such a weird choice. And then, I guess when he becomes good, which we'll get into all this stuff, his lip just slowly comes down a little.
That's a great performance, Hanson.
You're right. I can't control my lip like he can. Bryan, what'd you think about the entire thing?
Well, for me, the standout performance was definitely Sparky the dog.
Yep. Long live Sparky the dog.
R.I.P.
Yeah, but I really think Catherine Hahn did an awesome job as well as kind of the quirky, fun neighbor who eventually is revealed to kind of be this ancient witch and the kind of villain of the whole deal.
Yeah, it was her all along, as the song repeatedly told us about. And the internet really
the Salem witch trials were much different in the Marvel universe.
Oh man, those corpses looked so good. Like that first time with that flashback and then they all died, like every close-up of that witch body, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what that is, if it's practical or special effects. So I was so happy when they came back in a very scary way this episode, just to have more of that sweet-looking corpse action going on.
Yeah, and
sure.
It was fun to have Wanda bring Agatha back there with the same little mind tricky thing that she did in Age of Ultron to Tony Stark, something that she hadn't really done much of since her first appearance. But it was a cool callback to that. And then she also, in terms of callbacks, when she hit her with the car, leaving her with the Wizard of Oz boots, which was a nice touch.
Right.
That was something she did to Iron Man in Civil War as well. So
she hit him with a car? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, like fun callbacks in that type of stuff. But Love the flashback to the witch trials, bringing her back there, and then of course Agatha turning the tide on her. The mind tricks don't work on her very well, obviously.
Yeah, and then it kicks off. Basically, this episode was 3 1v1 fights where you had Vision versus White Vision, you had Scarlet Witch versus Agatha, and then it was brief, but you had Monica versus Quicksilver in the weird man cave, or should I say Ralph Boner. Believe it or not, the internet is freaking out. Reddit in particular is about like, what the hell are you doing, Marvel? You did to us one more time. Like, we were so excited about all these different possibilities with Pietro, and then it turns out the answer was it's Ralph Boner all along, you idiots. Move along. Oh my God. I mean, okay, there's so much to get to. I guess just a quick overview for me, like the last Max spoilers we did for the first 2 episodes of WandaVision, it was one of my favorite Marvel things ever. I was just over the moon with the meta narrative, everywhere it was going, everywhere it could go, just in love with it. I still ended up liking it, but especially by this last episode, I was really like, okay. Like, what was so exciting is how fresh and different it felt for those first handful of episodes. Like, oh, Marvel can do this. This is so awesome. And by the end, it's kind of MCU light, which I'm sure fans are excited about. There's a lot to be excited about here, but I don't know. There are definitely highlights throughout the entire season. I don't want to discredit. I still really like the show, but I think it was a little bit too, I don't know, conventional MCU in a way by the end, even when it's like, okay, she's got the Scarlet Witch crown. Isn't that exciting? It's like, yeah, it's cool for fans. It's great to see. But at the same time, I was expecting maybe more of that meta narrative about the nature of television to carry through. But that's like a very specific taste for me. I get it.
Yeah, it was at its weirdest to start out with, and it kind of, came back to reality over the course of the 9 episodes, which I guess kind of mirrors the story of Wanda herself, kind of coming back to grips with real life and accepting reality as it is. But did you guys have any favorites in terms of the sitcom setups? Any of those really stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean, the early ones are probably my favorite, but the one that made me go like, oh wow, was the Malcolm in the Middle intro. Like that intro in particular, maybe it's just, turns out that's my nostalgia sweet spot. Or just I haven't really seen a parody of something that feels relatively recent like that, but that like, early 2000s era, late 90s era TV that really got me. And it was like, of course they're going to do Malcolm in the Middle. That's such a cool choice.
Yeah, that was really cool to see, especially, because you don't really see the late 90s / early 2000s like parodied yet. Like 60s, 70s, 80s, that's been done a lot, but they were still cool to see. I really liked the theme song for like the Modern Family / Office style episode. Right. Where it's just like an Office style intro. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Those theme songs just as a whole were unbelievably amazing. And, to the capper on it all being Agatha all along, which is so catchy. One of the writers of the theme songs, who is, I believe it was the songwriting team behind Frozen.
What?
They didn't do the score. Yeah. They didn't do the scores for the episodes, but they did the theme songs, is my understanding.
Oh, wow.
And she had a tweet that shared a video of how a lot of the theme songs were built around the same 4-note motif, and kind of explaining why Agatha All Along sounds so good and hits so hard, because you've been like primed for it by hearing this musical theme building up through all the other different TV show theme songs.
Oh, weird. Yeah. Which one was your favorite, Ross?
Oh, I loved the Agatha All Along song first, but the 80s one, that whole 80s episode, kind of the Full House / whatever, like Family Ties, was it?
Yeah.
Mashup type thing. That's probably like the era of sitcoms I'm most familiar with. So that one worked the best for me, and I loved the theme song with like them running through the park at the camera, like straight out of the Full House openings. Felt very meta. Like finally Elizabeth gets to participate, and Mary-Kate and Ashley aren't telling her to butt out or whatever.
From our perspective, that's all we want, is like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool to have the Olsens just all gather together and talk about sitcoms? Do you think they realistically had one conversation about like, I'm doing this WandaVision. It's kind of like a sitcom show. Is there any universe where they had a satisfying conversation about that like we expect?
I wonder, yeah.
Oh, Bryan has disappeared into the ether.
We lost Bryan. I'm going to predict he's saying that the Olsen twins asked Wanda if they could play her child twins.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right. Hang on. Is he back, Bryan?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now. What were you trying to say?
Oh, I would like to think that behind the scenes, they're just all like a normal family, not anything. But since they're so private on the surface, it just seems like, do they even like text each other once a year to like say Happy New Year or something? I
have no idea. But like, so the weird thing with this show is as it's moving through the eras and moving forward in time, I don't know, again, you know, dumb media studies major or whatever, so I can't stop thinking about this stuff. But did you guys also just feel it getting more and more surreal, but not the way you'd expect? Basically what I'm trying to say is, as like the era would get closer and closer to the modern day, like that difference in tone between the sitcom world and the real world, the MCU world, like got smaller and smaller. And so by the end of this show, especially in this episode, I just felt like I've never seen a show that's a greater like tone crisis. I don't know what tone they're going for. I don't know what this is. Like there are moments where it cuts back to like the MCU world, but when it's cutting from that out of the Modern Family style world, it's like a pretty fine line. And it kind of bled over to kind of making the rest of the show feel a little bit hokier than maybe I was hoping for. Does that make sense? It just makes you so aware that you're watching a TV show when they're trying to parody a TV show that looks almost identical to the show that's actually happening.
I wonder if that might have been a deliberate choice, just to kind of like, you know, they're so different and opposite and everyone's cut off from each other. But as more, you know, agents get in and start mingling and everything, like the line getting thinner between everything, it seems like a deliberate choice to me, where it would be kind of, you know, this inevitable collision of the real world and the most modern sitcoms. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's even scenes, it's kind of all summed up by the Vision and Darcy when they're driving around in that truck or whatever, and then just having that moment of like, you know, Vision doing the interview, it's like, why am I talking to the camera? What is going on? You're like, that's like the final shattering. But even before that, where they're in the truck and it was kind of like goofy music behind it, I was like, wait, but they know what's going on. Like, what am I supposed to think the tone of this scene is? I cannot get a read on it.
Yeah, and then you know, he like takes the mic off and he's like, "What am I doing this confessional for?" And it was like all in his mind, sort of, almost, or just, yeah, it was tough to in that moment find the, you know, the boundary between what was TV real and real and whatever else.
Speaking of boundaries, I love the stuff where he's walking further and further away to like, was it Ellis Street or whatever on the edge of town, and everything's just crumbling. It's basically like NPCs just doing the repeated animation and stuff. It's just the sweetest stuff. Do you think if he would have done that in the early era of the show, it would have like transitioned out of black and white?
No, I think she was in control of that entire hexagon in every era, and it changed. You know, it modernized itself every time they made a time jump, right?
But it was weaker on the edge, or was that just her being practical with, you know, how much RAM the Scarlet Witch could handle by having the people do the repeated animations?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would still be repeated animations, but you'd see somebody, you know, setting out the milk jugs for the milkman or whatever.
Right,
you know,
right.
Something era appropriate.
Yeah.
One thing that really surprised me, now that we've seen the whole story, is that it was not Agatha who like set up the whole situation of the town. It was Wanda who did that.
I love that.
And, you know, wronged the townspeople the whole time. And that was the one really kind of weird note for me in this last episode, is when Monica said of the townspeople, they'll never know what you sacrificed for them. And you're like, well, she kind of put them in this position to start with. So
yeah, maybe Monica was just trying to butter her up because she knows how powerful she is. So she's like, you did a real good job. You did a great job. We all love you. You sacrificed things for them, really, by kidnapping them and brainwashing them.
They should appreciate you.
Don't spell choke me, please.
That was awesome. For a second, I thought that like she couldn't turn it off, that she was losing complete control of her power and she wasn't able to stop choking them. But I love that. And I love that even in our minds trying to figure out like, okay, these people begging just to like be with their children again. Is this Agatha imprinting thoughts on them, or is this them being honest? And it seems like that was honestly what they were trying to express to Wanda.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're supposed to think the former. You're supposed to be like, oh, she's like mind controlling them to like, make Wanda weaker or whatever. But I think Wanda really was doing that, and those people really were like, oh, this is a terrible thing.
God,
it seems like whenever she gets super stressed out or aggrieved, she has to do like the and then like all the stuff shoots out, and usually it's something bad that maybe it seems okay, but then it usually ends up being bad like throughout the entire Hex world.
Yeah, she's gonna arch her back all the way and then do the big beam out of her head.
Yeah, I'm interested in your guys' thoughts on the second to last episode, which was the flashbacks episode, where Agatha takes Wanda through the different eras of her life, kind of reliving her traumatic moments.
Yeah, that was interesting. It is cool to see that scene that we just heard of from Age of Ultron. I love that they just, ripped off the Band-Aid and just showed you, hey, here's the DVD compilations that we're basing this entire show off of. And I love that it's like, let's just go back and look at how freaking cool Mary Tyler Moore was for a beat. Like, let's go through all these different eras. I thought it was really great. The scene where they're actually under the bed looking at the Stark bomb, I was like, are they really trapped? I always envisioned that being much more dire than just like, it's a lot of rubble around and we're just sitting under the bed looking at the bomb. Maybe I didn't have a full read of the geography, but I always envisioned them being like pinned down in a more extreme way, I guess.
Yeah, like some rubble on a leg or something. Versus like, if we tiptoe away, it could set off the bomb.
Yeah. So the idea there was that she did use the probability hex on the bomb.
Yeah, I think that what they're getting at is that she had some kind of powers to start with. Yeah. And that would explain why the bomb didn't go off rather than it just being a dud, right? Right. Another nice little detail is that the blinking light on the Stark missile or whatever, and the beeping sound is the same light and beep as the toaster in the first commercial from that first episode.
That is such a fun idea. Okay, the thing I'm still trying to wrap my brain around is obviously the Scarlet Witch thing. She's got the crown, she's got the whole get up. But the part that's weird is in the Halloween episode earlier on, when she comes down dressed like that, and she's like, oh, I'm just an old Sokovian fortune teller. So is the idea that there was an old Sokovian fortune teller who was the Scarlet Witch and probably told young Wanda, like, you are super powerful, you are the next Scarlet Witch, or however she phrased it. And so in Wanda's mind, she just thought that was a fortune teller's outfit, but it was actually a previous incarnation of the Scarlet Witch?
It could be that. It could be also that she knows on some subconscious level that she is the Scarlet Witch and that is the Scarlet Witch costume. And, and she's just like she does in many of the early episodes, she's hand-waving it away with some convenient explanation. Yeah.
People in the comments, please correct me if I'm wrong or explain what this was, but I have in my notes, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. At some point early on, Hayward from SWORD, that's his name, right? Is that the commander guy? He says something about talking about Wanda. He goes like, doesn't she have another name or something? Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah. And they're like, no, this is just Wanda.
Okay, just
Wanda Maximoff. That's it.
She does not have a code name yet. Right. Audience will be surprised when we call her the Scarlet
okay. I was
Witch.
trying to remember exactly how he phrased that and all that stuff. Hayward, I liked how friendly he was in the early episodes. I'm always in favor of a subtle villain. And by the end of the show, when he's just pulling out a pistol and firing it into children, I'm like, all right, Marvel, we get that he's evil. Jesus Christ, calm it down.
Yeah, that was a little surprising, but I guess it gave everyone a chance to show off some hot new powers.
Right. And that's the idea. It's like, okay, let's make Monica more of a hero here, getting her to stand in front of the bullets and slow them down and all that stuff.
Yeah. And clearly,
Monica doesn't actually a hero from the comics, right? Like she's.
Yeah, I forget her
I'm
name.
not exactly sure what her powers are.
They're like light-based, sort of like general. She's like, her body is like energy, and like her coach. She's been Captain Marvel at one point. She was Photon and Spectrum, I believe, were her main other superhero names. And yeah, just kind of like generic. She's made out of energy type of powers that can mean many different things.
Yeah,
they can really twist it to however they need. One thing I think is really cool about this show is that I just kept thinking after it was over. So I know we're not talking about the credit stuff yet, but
whatever.
The fact that she in a normal Captain Marvel 2, you would have to show her like a lot of her origin stuff. Like, oh yeah, I'm really mad my mom died. The snap happened. All that stuff. And then she'd kind of get kind of a fast forwarded, let's catch everyone up to what she's up to. But like, what's nice is now Captain Marvel 2 can kind of just hit the ground running from this point on.
Well, especially, I'm trying to remember, is the Miss Marvel show before Captain Marvel 2? Because they also have to incorporate all of the Miss Marvel stuff. So it is a lot of, setup that they could theoretically offload.
Yeah, Captain Marvel 2 is not, I believe, until the end of 2022. I'm not sure exactly when the Ms. Marvel show is coming out, but I assume it's kind of mid-2022, so next year.
So maybe the Ms. Marvel is kind of like a lead-in, like a several-week lead-in to the movie.
I think so, yeah, but we can jump right to the end for this one. So this is the post-credit scene where you see Monica go into the theater with some FBI agent. Turns out it's a Skrull, and she's like, what does she say? I've been sent by an old friend of your mother's. He'd like to meet you. So it's basically, hey, go up to Nick Fury's starship where we last saw him in Spider-Man. Is that where that was?
Yeah, which I believe takes place after this show in timeline terms.
Okay.
Because remember, the snap happened, the unsnap happened, and Peter and all his friends came back, and then it's like their big summer trip or something to Europe. And whereas WandaVision happens pretty soon after the events of Endgame when everybody comes back.
Yeah, by the way, that scene of Monica coming back from the snap in the hospital was so freaking cool. I never knew that I wanted to see that, like somebody be reassembled slowly, but that was so awesome.
And she's in the same room and like everything's changed around. Like it was a cool way to it was kind of like not necessarily the same, but I had a similar vibe of like that early, like the first episode of Walking Dead when Rick wakes up in the hospital and like everything's changed around him. Yeah,
absolutely. There seems like they're setting up for Monica to be a big part of the Secret Invasion storyline then, right? Because that's going to be another Disney Plus show starring good old Sammy Jackson. And so, her going to meet him is probably going to be how that show starts, I'd have to imagine.
Yeah, I think that's the next big thing for Nick Fury. So, stands to reason that she's going to jump in on that.
Yeah. Let's go back in time a little bit, too, to talk about Pietro, because that was probably the craziest moment for me of the entire show is when that door opens and it's Quicksilver, but the X-Men Quicksilver. And like, that was the moment where I fell in love with the show all over again about like, okay, so it's not a meta commentary on TV. It's a meta commentary of all of Hollywood. This is awesome. Now it's roping in so many different angles and there's so many new avenues for discussion and ideas. And then fans are disappointed that it was just Mr. Boner himself the entire time. But there's still that wiggle room, right? Of like, well, maybe it's still Quicksilver from another, or in this universe, he's Mr. Boner, but in the other universe that's technically Fox's X-Men, he still was Quicksilver there. Do you think it's just fans reading too much into it, or are they trying to at least wink at some, other dimensional stuff?
It seems to me like it's, at this point, mostly a meta reference, right?
Yeah.
To quote unquote recasting Quicksilver. So I'm sure that it's Marvel. There's some way that they could, explain away, he was the missing person that Jimmy Woo was looking for. He's missing because he's came from a different part of the multiverse or whatever. But that will have to be, explained before I will take this as anything more than a metatextual reference.
Yeah, they really left it open to just like, we could take it either way. If we want to bring back the X-Men like tease, like we can write it this way. Like they seem to do with a lot of decisions on the show to kind of leave it open one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it all just came from God, what's his name? What's his name? The actual Quicksilver.
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Thank you. Ross, God bless you. Do you think it just came from like they couldn't line up something with him or didn't want to work with him again or something like that? So what's the next best option? Oh, this would be kind of a cheeky nod. Let's not read too much into it. Let's go for this guy, Evan Peters.
I think I read an article somewhere where one of the creators was like, oh yeah, from the start, we were definitely going to go with, this actor. Like that was the whole idea from the start, just to kind of twist it with people and make it seem strange. Huh.
Yeah, but definitely, the internet was running amok with theories about him, like, oh, he's actually Mephisto the whole time because he talks about, the town being hell, or there's a couple like cheeky references, and so people were just losing their minds about where this could possibly go. Didn't end up really being the case, but I love that there's not, there's Agatha, but I love that it wasn't some huge buildup of some new secret villain. Like, I love that ultimately Wanda is kind of the big bad of this show. I think it's much more interesting that it was her doing this stuff and that Agatha just wants the power. She was just along for the ride for a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big Mephisto guy personally, so I like a little more down to earth villain, if you can call like a hundreds of years old witch more down to earth villain.
Yeah.
But Catherine Hahn is so good that she played the sitcom characters fantastic, and then when it came time to be a witch, she was like a great villain. So.
Oh yeah,
and she was so good. I was confused. Like I was thinking, like obviously the hex is shrinking, but I thought that she would, Wanda would let the townspeople free, but it seems like Agatha is still living in like the weird like ghost town version.
Well, yeah, it'll be fun whenever she pops up. Maybe it'll be Doctor Strange 2. It's probably going to be longer than that before we see her again. When they're just trying to get a handle on Wanda's new powers. But so the hex is gone, but she's just being mind controlled. So wherever she is, she's just wandering around the earth as this character from the late 50s, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if she was, going to continue living in Westview and just being a weirdo mind controlled neighbor. It was, kind of an appropriate fate for her. And I'm really glad that they did not write her out completely or kill her off.
Yep.
Just because I'd love to see her again.
Yep. Ian Williams in the chat is also super excited. He says, hey, 2 more MCU villains that didn't end up dying for a change. Yeah, keep them around. If it's the MCU, we know that nobody dies now. And everything will stay the same forever. Like,
yeah, including the Vision, right?
Yes. But before we get to Vision, though, like I am a sucker for consequences. I love Iron Man 3 because it's just about the consequences of the Avengers, right? Mentally, that's my favorite stuff. And so even early on, when Wanda is in her Dragon Ball Z battle with Agnes, and the blasts are going back and forth, and her hand like gets all old. I'm like, this is awesome. I am so excited for her to have this one old hand for the rest of the MCU. And it's like, no, she's fine. She gets to be old for a little bit and then moving on. And the Vision is like the ultimate version of this. So we now have White Vision, where it's Vision's original body was revived, came back, had a hell of a fight with the memory of Vision. The memory of Vision then, strangely enough, injected his memories of being Vision into White Vision, and then White Vision said, I am Vision, and then flew away.
That was an impressively clear summation of what happened.
It's so silly.
Yeah, they lampshaded it themselves a little bit by having Vision be like, well, I was a disembodied voice at one time, and then I was a synthezoid, and now I'm a memory, so who knows what I'll be next.
Right. And turns out, it'll just be White Vision and he'll be a little bit different, but realistically it's the same. I saw, people online were upset, like, why is he just flying away if he's just Vision now? But it's like, well, they have to let the actual memory of Vision have his send off before Wanda can have the big reunion with White Vision. I don't know.
I mean, he's probably got a mixture of weird programs and commands fighting against the internal memories, and obviously they're going to meet up.
He's got to let all that settle for a while, I'm sure. I also love that Paul Bettany had been saying that in the final episode he worked with an actor that he's wanted to work with his whole career, and he just met himself.
That's so good. Fans were losing it at that because, there was so long. This is a problem of reading the internet too much, but for so long everyone was like, "Oh man, it's gonna have its cameo moment at the scale of the end of The Mandalorian season 2. It's gonna happen." It's like, well, even if they said that it's gonna happen, the Pietro stuff feels like that is that level of cameo. That is insane that they did that. It's just wild. And then it turns out, it was Paul Bettany. But I was fully bracing, especially once we saw the old clips, I was fully bracing for the way they're going to get Wanda to snap out of it is they were going to bring Bryan Cranston, the actor, and Dick Van Dyke, the actor, and have these cameos where they try to calm Wanda down. I was fully hyped in my mind for this Dick Van Dyke cameo because the showrunner or somebody, I forget who it was, early on gave an interview where they were asked if Dick Van Dyke had a cameo, and they're like, "Mum's the word," one of those just canned responses. But I was so convinced, oh, this is going to be freaking sweet to have Dick Van Dyke in the MCU. But no go. He's pretty up there.
I guess it counts because footage of his show was shown in the MCU.
So he's technically
an MCU character.
Yeah, and again,
he's got a fandom entry.
Honestly, with how quickly the MCU is expanding, I mean, it's basically the Hex at this point. It was a bold move to show Bryan Cranston in that scene from Malcolm in the Middle where the roof falls on him when he's building the deck, which genuinely made me laugh out loud just seeing that stupid clip again. But now it's well, now they can't cast Bryan Cranston, right? And I'm sure at some point it would have gotten to. You're right. They'll just end up doing it. But I mean,
they got Chris Evans to be a Fantastic Four and Captain America.
Yeah, in a confusing way. Yeah. But I love that Vision fight. It's fun to see them phasing through each other and stuff. But then I love that it just ends up with them debating the ship of Theseus thing about what is real. It felt like really end of Age of Ultron stuff again.
Yeah, totally. Two robots discussing humanity and that sort
right.
of thing. For some reason, when they were doing the forehead laser beam horizontally, I'm like, they are cutting the roof off this library for some reason, and it didn't happen. But I want to see the version where Dick Van Dyke makes an appearance and the library roof is cut off. Yeah,
the Zack Snyder's cut of WandaVision. Is it too much to ask for?
What do you guys think as far as this is a pretty intense special effects, big time fights?
Yeah.
What do the movies have to do now to stand out from shows like this if the show's like this good?
Cameos, actors. I mean, it's going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, right? It seems like where Wanda is going to pop up next. And I think that is it's what Spider-Man's doing as well. It's what, the Flash is doing over on DC by bringing Michael Keaton back. It is just how many cameos and nostalgia buttons can we pack into one movie? Nostalgia is the greatest special effect, Brian.
That's true. It's true. I mean, Ross and I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and going through that, we enjoyed it, of course, but there's definitely was a hard line, at a certain point, they're like, we're no longer playing around with what's happening in the main Marvel universe. There's definitely a huge budget difference. It was more in your face, but it's going to be strange to see how they can pull it off.
Yeah, and just to put a button on that, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being a separate reality at this point, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a whole half season that was centered around that book, The Darkhold, that Wanda takes possession of in this episode, and it's very clearly two different books. So that's not.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
What was it in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. then?
There was a half season where it was I don't know, mystical things were happening. Ghost Rider was showing up. It was one of the better storylines on the show. It just at some point it was clearly this is all in a different reality, even though Coulson is still in the show.
Ooh, calling it right now. Coulson will be in Secret Invasion, and he will have been a Skrull the entire time.
Ooh, could be good.
Although, hang on, wasn't he a clone or something in the in the show. How do they justify that nonsense again?
He became a robot at one point. Stop me, Brian, if I'm getting details wrong.
There's been like 8 different versions. You know, like he really changed a lot. The first one was, it was his original body, right? But it was injected with alien juice. That's right. Yep.
Okay, so he's probably not a Skrull, at least in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. version of this universe.
Literally anything could happen. Just hand wave it all away. It's magic now, right? The Scarlet Witch can make anything a reality.
Yeah, Ian Williams in the backstage pass here watching us live, he said that Kree tech was used to revive him, and that was the weird justification.
Oh, that must have been the alien juice, yeah.
That's right. And then, eventually he died, though, and then there was a robot, like an LMD Coulson, that that they were like, no, we'll just call you Coulson. We won't make you think you're a robot. So
and they put Coulson's consciousness in him, so it was pretty much like real Coulson for the most part.
It's basically the Vision storyline again.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. By the way,
there's one time he had a fake arm.
That sounds cool.
They use that a lot in fights and other wacky ways.
Yeah.
Their one special effect is his fake arm. By the way, real quick, it made me laugh so much when it goes back to Hayward just being over the top evil. When that awesome scene where Wanda like breaks in and she's like, "Give me Vision, give me his body," and then they go in and he's like, "Fine, go look for yourself." And like her looking down on the Vision, it's just like comical, like chainsaw, like on like Vision, like sparks flying everywhere. It's just like the least surgical operation I've ever seen in my life.
There's like a chisel on his crotch.
It was so over the top. But hey, good times for everybody. Okay,
Wanda, you've arrived just in time for the chainsaw dismemberment.
Okay, but the Darkhold, the book that we saw in the basement, and then Agatha was showing it off, and then in the second post-credits thing, turns out Wanda is very into. So this is an old book, very Doctor Strangey, right?
Yeah, it's basically the Marvel. It's the #1 evil magic Marvel book. Is my impression of the Darkhold.
Okay, MCU. What are we doing? I love this turkey stuff. Okay, so she has this evil book. What was your read on what was happening at the end there, Brian?
It seems like she's able to kind of create multiple, like, I'm not even sure if that cabin was real or not, but she's kind of surface level able to project some kind of normal thing going on. And then this whole time she's like, all right, this book seems like it's worth scoping out, so I'm gonna give it a read. I'm gonna take a long weekend, give it a read, see what's all the juicy stuff is in there. But it seems like it'll kind of lead her to go seek out Doctor Strange. But there was also, at the very end, it seemed like someone was calling for help.
Well, those are kids.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys.
Yeah, I want to throw in there that Doctor Strange did have that ability to like make an astral projection of himself, read books while he was like taking a nap or whatever.
Right.
So could be the same thing. That threw me for a loop though too, seeing 2 Wandas in the cabin. But I think it's just something to that extent.
I think so. Reddit thinks at least like that was a clear sign of how much more powerful she is than Doctor Strange, because at least according to this one Reddit comment, which is where most of my MCU knowledge comes from, it's that idea that the astral projection was something that they could only do if like their actual body was unconscious or something. But the idea that like she was able to be in 2 places at the same time was proof of what Agatha said, which is that she's more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme.
I'll buy it. I totally buy that.
Yeah.
Also, I kind of wished her witch cabin had like chicken legs, like the Baba Yaga. But we got to save something for another appearance, I suppose.
Just runs over the mountain.
That would have been great. Did you guys think swooping around the corner, it would be just like White Vision, like having some coffee or like making some eggs?
Totally. Yeah. I was expecting something other than just another version of Wanda reading the book. But I guess, okay, so do we think that Wanda is going to be the villain then for Doctor Strange 2? Or is she just going to use this book and end up summoning, hang on, let me go back to Reddit comments, the elder god Chathan, and then that's going to lead to being the big bad of Doctor Strange 2?
Yeah, I do not think that she's going to be the villain in Doctor Strange 2 or anything else really in the near future. I think it's a unintended consequence, as was hinted at a couple times here, like Agatha going, "You don't know what you've unleashed," or whatever.
Right.
I think something that she did here will cause something crazy to happen.
Yep.
Doctor Strange swoops in and says, "Hey, you got to come help me fix this. You're so powerful you can go between the dimensions," or whatever.
Yeah, but I hope there's a couple moments at least of like Doctor Strange being scared of Wanda. A couple, like basically like the way they treated Hulk in the first movie. Like, okay, he's on her side, but he's also the scariest thing to be around. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah, and then I don't know, maybe down the road, like they still have, I'm assuming they still have Avengers movies, but in her quest to kind of continually look for her kind of phantom children, she kind of loses it a little bit, like the House of M storyline where she kind of messes everything up. Like that could be kind of the big beat of, this is the fourth phase, right? Like just her kind of eventually getting to that point where she kind of loses it and she's so powerful. We've already seen her kind of unintentionally almost choke everyone to death. So like seeing that on a large worldwide or universe-wide scale,
yeah, I think
seems like it could be something.
For sure. I think she's the most interesting villain the MCU could have at this point. It's like, forget Galactus, forget these elder gods that they're going into. I don't know what what's the name of that movie? Jesus, why am I forgetting the upcoming one? Not Inhumans. Immortals? Eternals. Jesus. Here's my nerd card. Have it back. Like whatever they're going to be dealing with, like I think having this weird personal story where it's Wanda that they all have to take down would be so much cooler.
Yeah, I was never a fan in the comics of the Wanda is crazy and she's making bad things happen to us storylines. That was like, House of M, like Brian mentioned, and Avengers Disassembled, I believe. And yeah, I like the spin that the show did on it better, where it's like she's trying to process her grief and her trauma, and she kind of accepts her grief at the end of the show, and that's the character development, and it leaves her in a place where she's not a villain. But of course, it could go in any direction. Who knows going forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to go back a tiny bit, I was just I didn't know if you guys were thinking too, like as it was closing in, I was like, maybe there's a chance that there'll just be this tiny force field around the house and she has this like family that she can hang on to and visit from time to time, or just live there forever. But I think it's more, final and for the show to just have them like, you guys got to go. It's
yeah, and now it can be that carrot on the stick for her trying to tap into other multiverses and all that stuff.
But I found that to be a really powerful the moment, the way they did it, where she kind of like said goodbye to the kids upstairs. It's like, I can't watch you disintegrate. But,
right. I'll just watch Vision disintegrate while I kiss him goodbye. Yeah,
this little face floating once again.
Yeah, I like that. It definitely wasn't as emotional. I think was it the last episode where Vision had that line about grief being love persisting. Like, oh, that's the best line of the show there. That's incredible. Speaking of incredible, I'm a huge Incredibles fan. So like that one shot of like the four of them in the town with the camera flying in and like the horns are basically just like going full Incredibles. And like the Incredibles was on the movie theater in the previous episode as well.
That's
during, like,
right.
In the middle one.
Oh yeah.
So
there's that moment when they're clearly all like, all right, let's strike our hero battle pose.
Right.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Like a family.
Yes, it was perfect. So I'm curious to see, like, even if she wants her kids back, it's still just like, I feel like we'll be fully against her in the idea that, like, they weren't really real kids. You were with them for 4 days. Like, I don't understand what you're going for here. You got White Vision. Make a new brood of weird superhero children, please.
Get them some paint.
Yeah. Emotionally, did it work for you, Ross? Like the last episode?
It did. I liked it a lot. Yeah, like I mentioned, the strength of the two leads was just so much that they really connected with me. I loved all the scenes that they had together, and the strength of the show for me is that Vision and Scarlet Witch, both of them, were such secondary characters in all the movies that this really gave them a chance to shine. And now I really, really enjoy both of these characters, and looking forward to, seeing more of them in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if you add up the amount of screen time that they've had now, I'd love to know how it compares to, like, even a Tony Stark. It's got to be close, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely, especially factoring in the other movies. Yeah.
Emotionally, another amazing moment was a couple episodes ago is up there. Probably was my favorite moment of the entire series, was when Vision was like walking outside the Hex and he's like slowly aging and disintegrating. He's like, you've got to help them. I love that stuff so much, probably because it ties into like Beetlejuice. But I love that idea of just like, you can't kill them, they're already dead. It's like, no, like it's really messing them up, being in this state of kind of alive and kind of dead at the same time. It's so sweet.
Yeah, there's so many cool moments, and I feel like, unlike a lot of shows that can set up a lot of these mysteries and maybe not pay them off or leave them kind of up there, they really did explain almost everything as far as I can recall off the top of my head, including Vision being like, what am I? At the very end, like, okay, so you're like my grief and my love, and I really kind of explaining what he was and everything.
Yeah, I love the MCU getting so weird. I was thinking about I rewatched the first episode with my girlfriend after we talked about it in the last Max spoilers, and she loved it. Was sincerely laughing at the jokes. It just hit exactly as I was hoping it would hit. And we didn't keep watching it together. And I was just thinking man, if I would have asked her to watch this entire show, by this episode, she'd be like, F this. And I wonder if anybody out there has had that experience. If you watched it with somebody who's not in the MCU, I'd love to hear your feedback just about if it is still a good entry point, where by the time you get to this episode, which is just MCU-a-palooza, if it's like, okay, I'm asking questions. What's the deal with Vision? What's the deal with this? Versus just like, oh, I thought this was a cool mystery and a meta narrative on TV, and now it's just descending into Dragon Ball Z fights, whatever.
Yeah, it's I like to think about that too. How does this play? How does Mandalorian play for somebody who's never seen a Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
It's so hard to put myself in that headspace that I wonder, I think from the perspective of Wanda as a character, you could follow, the second to last episode where you're like, okay, she was a kid, this happened to her, and then maybe this next thing happened to her and whatever else. But I imagine that it's such a drastic right turn from the start of the show with sitcom antics that it would be quite crazy to try to follow.
Yeah, I don't have a fully clean slate here because my partner's. I had her watch
Fiance.
What's that?
Fiance.
Yeah, that's right.
Congratulations, yeah. My God.
That's right. Announcing to the MinnMax community here. But no, it's very exciting. And she was, before Disney Plus existed, before a lot of this stuff, I was like, all right, well, I've already made her watch more of the recent movies as they came out. And then I was like, she's like, well, why are they fighting each other? And who are these guys? I'm like, I guess we should probably just watch every single one from the beginning.
Oh my God.
So it was a huge pain to just go through and rent them one by one, versus the way you can just watch them right now, just back to back, no problem.
Yeah.
But there's still plenty of times where she's okay, I don't remember who this guy is or what are they doing here. So, but she's definitely into it. And, always, she's cool about me watching it by myself this morning for this very show.
That's very generous of her. Thank her.
We're definitely going to watch it tonight together and see the big finale. So she's hooked to it.
Oh, nice.
And she wasn't a mega nerd fan that watched them all on her own, but has since been hey, I'm enjoying this stuff as it comes along.
Oh, good. Other highlights we haven't hit from the entire season at this point?
One thing that I just want to shout out from this episode, clearly Darcy's a big TV fan, given by her love of the WandaVision show and her understanding of all the different tropes.
Yeah.
I imagine she must be a big Lost fan due to her stealing of Hurley's big moment from the season 3 finale of running the bus into the evildoers at an opportune moment.
Yep. Very shrewd. Very shrewd. Yeah, I like that. I think she was talking to him earlier on in the season. There's a moment where he's like, "Do you work for me?" And she's like, "I don't know, honestly." Like, no one knows exactly what's going on in this chain of command here. It's just all over the place. That was fun, though. It was fun to see her come back.
It is cool to see some of these side characters like Kat Dennings and Jimmy, the FBI.
Yeah, Agent Wu.
Yeah, just getting their chance to shine too, and because there's a lot of these fun sidekicks that maybe get 5-10 minutes of lines in the big movies, but they're a lot of fun. And like normally in a show like this, they could become like total main characters. So it's really nice for them to be able to just kind of let everything kind of breathe and shine in a different storytelling medium.
Yeah.
So I think when you have in the movies in the past, it's like, you can't really tell just like something like this where, go really into character depth and all that thing. It's like the audiences expect a huge, building destroying fight and like complete madness by the end. I don't know if they got their money worth, but
yeah,
it seems like this is an interesting way to start off what hopefully will be an interesting take on TV. And it does seem like a lot of the story, like we were talking about before with the origins, that that'll be kind of pushed to these stories. And I wonder how many more new superheroes will have their origins in a TV show versus a big movie.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. Speaking of origins, there was a fun fan theory. There's the episode where Agnes was like holding the kids. She said something like, there's some line where she said like, "I bit a kid once." And it was just like this silly
yes.
joke. But the fans are like, did she create Peter Parker Spider-Man? Like, was she a spider and she bit him? And that is the connection there, which would be amazing that she created Spider-Man. But that might be a little bit much.
Yeah, I thought that you were going to go with, was she the witch in Hansel and Gretel?
Oh, that'd be good too. I'm sure she'll get a spin-off show 15 years from now we can all look forward to. But hey, Falcon and the Winter Soldier starting up in a couple weeks. We have perfectly timed the deepest dive on Batman Arkham Asylum, Brian, to fill that superhero gap. And then right when that ends, then Falcon and the Winter Soldier kicks up. And I'm curious how different that tone is. It seems like it's going to be more of, what is it, like 6 episodes? Just like, it's a short action film, or I guess a long action film. Here you go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen them kind of do the math on it, where people are like, why is it shorter? And they're like, well, WandaVision was traditionally around half an hour per episode, but it was 9 episodes, whereas this is going to be closer to an hour for 6 episodes. So it's minute by minute, it's supposed to be a pretty similar amount of content, just kind of condensed. But it does seem from that trailer, it does seem more of like a traditional MCU type of movie. But I don't know. It's going to be hard to top this as being more of like unique, outside the box, far from MCU type of vibe. Going forward, I think people you can't really just like, okay, now, you can't. Yeah, I don't see how you can kind of make something this crazy and unique.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a lot more traditional in terms of a lot of the action and setups and stuff like that. I have high hopes for kind of the political aspect of the show, or the social politics of it. I think that they definitely have an opportunity to do some interesting stuff there with, who Sam and Bucky think should take the mantle of Captain America versus maybe who the U.S. government thinks should take up that mantle. So I've got high hopes for it. And I hope they also bring in some of the lesser known characters or secondary characters like WandaVision did too.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what they have in store for us. Ian Williams, watching us live, he points out that the making of episode is going to be next week. I'm curious if they post that under like the Disney gallery, which is where the Mandalorian stuff was. And it's kind of so generic. That would be cool just for like, here's all the nerd making of stuff. Who knows?
It's got some kind of Disney stories or some kind of label that I don't know if they're going to use that for all Marvel behind the scenes stuff now or what. But.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, thanks for joining us on this big journey, talking about WandaVision. I'm sure we'll be back in the future talking about more dorky stuff. If there's dorky stuff on TV, these two probably watched it. So we'll try and line something up here. But thank you so much for watching and subscribing on YouTube and supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. And get ready for the deepest dive on Batman Arkham Asylum. You can play through the game, get the line launcher, or you can just support us on Patreon and unlock the podcast version of those huge discussions. Because, Brian, I don't know if you know this, it's going to be the best, most thorough discussion about Batman Arkham Asylum on the internet.
Oh my gosh. Looking forward to it.
It's happening. Ross, Brian, thank you for being here. Ross, what would you like to plug, sir?
Hey, follow me on Twitter at AreYouBadEnough, and I'll see you for future Max spoilers.
Perfect. Bryan Vore.
You can follow me on Twitter at Bryan_Vore. And see you on Max Spoilers and the deepest dive for Batman.
Hooey! All right, thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Yep.
Content like this exists because of you. Thank you so much for subscribing on YouTube, sharing it with a friend, and especially for supporting MinnMax on Patreon. Supporters at any tier on Patreon unlock access to MinnMax's Discord, the friendliest place on the internet, where you can compete in game trivia every month to win prizes with our show Trivia Tower. Thanks so much for watching and sharing our stuff, everybody.